Hello everybody, I am Tiffany, and today I am not bringing you just a movie review or just a book review, but a book and movie review combined. That's right, I read a book and then I watched the movie based off the book, and now I'm ready to review it. Now you may be asking, why Tiffany? Why are you wearing such a business-like shirt? Well, of course, it goes with the theme of this book, which is all about lawyers. And it's actually a really special book to me because my Abuelo requested it. The book I'm talking about is The Firm by John Grisham. My Abuelo a while back requested that I read a John Grisham book because he loves John Grisham's books. And for those of you who don't know who John Grisham is, he's a very accomplished writer, writes a lot of books, and has actually done a lot of books that have been made into very successful movies. When my Abuelo, hi Abuelo, requested that I read a John Grisham book, I went on the quest of searching which one I really wanted to watch. It came down between The Firm and A Time to Kill. There's a movie based off that book with Matthew McConaughey, Sandra Bullock. I love that movie. I've watched it 5,000 times. I think it's a really, really great movie. I was thinking about reading the book because of the fact that I loved the movie so much. But what turned me away from it was the fact that because I've watched the movie so much as it's fun for me to read and see the differences in a book and a movie, the fact that I've watched it so many times really made me be like, do I really want to read the story that I already know how it's going to end for the most part, as far as I know? So then I finally came across The Firm. Now some of you may be wondering, why this one? There's other popular books out there by John Grisham probably that are a bit more, like The Pelican Brief, for example. The Firm, I knew there was a movie with Tom Cruise in it, and this movie I had actually tried to watch a while ago when I was younger and didn't really care about those types of movies. So I watched maybe like the first 10-15 minutes and then I stopped because I lost interest. But being the completionist that I am, it bugs me that I actually never finished that film. So when I realized that John Grisham had wrote The Firm, that film is based off of, I just said to myself, Tiff, you gotta go pick this up, read the book, and then that gives you an excuse to finish the movie, and then your completionist life feels satisfied. Woo! This has been one of the most interesting experiences comparing and contrasting the book and the movie, because this is one of those situations where they are very different. Before we get too much into it though, let me go ahead and give you statistics. The movie has a 6.8 out of 10 on IMDb, which isn't that bad. That's close to a 7. Usually the 6s I say in IMDb are a hit or miss. You either really like it or you really don't. They're not the most spectacular movies ever. They fall in the middle of the pack, but that doesn't mean that they're not entertaining. The book has a 4.01 on Goodreads, which is awesome. Anytime a book hits a 4-star on Goodreads, because it's out of 5 stars, that's pretty dang good. For those of you who don't know what The Firm is about, this follows a young hotshot lawyer named Mitch McDear, fresh out of law school. A lot of these big giant firms are trying to get him to come to their firm and work for them. And there's this one tiny one in Memphis that catches McDear's eye. They make him an offer in the words of the Godfather that he cannot refuse, and Mitch decides to take the offer and go to the smaller firm in Memphis, but of course he soon starts to figure out not everything is as it seems. Overall, I like the book way more than I liked the movie. The movie is still great, I'm not discounting that, but the movie didn't have the same oomph and this kind of puzzle aspect to it that the book had. The book is a very big mental game. Of course, it's dealing with lawyers and how they think and how they have to manipulate stuff. I really liked that aspect of this book. It really dove into it, I felt like. I don't know how it is compared to his other books because I haven't read his other books, but I really loved how intricate this was and the thought process of it all, because it's kind of crazy looking in the grand scheme of it all how detail oriented this book is, and the movie definitely didn't capture that quality for me. Tom Cruise did a great job, all of the actors did a really great job, it just didn't grab my attention like that. Speaking of the actors, just to let you know, this movie does star Tom Cruise, hopefully you know who he is, Gene Triplehorn, Gene Hackman, who's a really big actor as well, and Hal Holbrook. So it has a really awesome cast to it, but overall to me the book is 10 times better than the movie. I was afraid that I wasn't going to be able to get all the terminology just because I don't know a lot about lawyer stuff, in all honesty. I know about politics and I try and keep up with it, but I'm not saying I'm well versed in it, and I really appreciated that it was actually very easy for me to understand what was going on, because sometimes I feel like books like these, they're meant for people more who do know about this stuff, and so it has a lot of big terminology and goes way more into detail. This book did take me a while to finish, but not necessarily because I was having a hard time understanding it. I love fantasy, I love sci-fi, I love dystopia, I love that type of fiction. So reading another type of fiction makes it hard for me to get through. Even contemporaries that are just really, really good and really fun, they're hard for me to get through because I'm used to fantasy where there's big, giant, epic battles and that type of stuff. So when I read a book that isn't like that, it takes me longer because my brain's like, what are you doing? Why is this not action-packed in that particular way? I really did enjoy it, and I did find myself when I did sit down to read it, I didn't want to put it down, which is a very, very good sign. That's really all I'm going to tell you without spoiling you, because I really want to get into the spoilery section. So I'm going to go ahead and let you non-spoilery people go. The book is really good. I don't think it's for everybody. Not everyone's going to enjoy it, but John Grisham is a fantastic writer, and his books are not that difficult to understand if that's one aspect that you're worried about, like I was. And like I said, the movie is super fun, a little bit cheesy, but overall it is a really good time. Thank you so much for joining me, non-spoilery people. Goodbye! Come back when you've maybe read the stuff. I was really, really shocked at how different the book and the movie were. This was one of those situations where there were certain aspects that I liked way better in the book than I did in the movie, but also vice versa. There were some choices that they made storyline-wise with the movie that I thought worked really, really well. The first big problem, though, I did have with the movie is even though it was well acted, I didn't feel intimidated by these characters. The big twist is that the firm is actually basically a mafia, and they go after young hotshot lawyers like Mitch himself, and they end up having them work for them for a few years and then getting them so entangled it so that by the time they reveal that they're actually working for them all, they can't really do anything. They can't leave. And Mitch ends up having to make a decision between whether he is going to go after the firm with the FBI or if he's going to stay with the firm but also run that risk. The firm gets caught and then the FBI takes them down and he goes down with them. So it's like a lose-lose situation for him. One element that made it so intense throughout the book was the fact that the characters that he's dealing with are very intimidating. Even Avery Tolar, who's probably the least intimidating, was still intimidating because he's messed up but he knows about the secret. You don't know if he's going to actually bust Mitch and what he's trying to do and trying to stop the firm. It's very scary, and that's what amps it up for me. Mitch is trying to beat these guys who have intel galore and are able to basically figure out anything. And it's really just Mitch trying to make it to the finish line before the mafia does and kills him. But the movie, these actors, they did a great job, but they just weren't intimidating. Especially Devasher. Devasher, while I loved the actor, I was extremely disappointed in just how it was written, because to me, Devasher's the scariest character in this book that goes up against Mitch, because he's guessing every single thing that Mitch is gonna do. And luckily, the other lawyers that are part of the mafia question him and say, no, we don't think Mitch would do this. So that's what keeps Mitch a little bit ahead of the game. But Devasher's spot on with what he thinks Mitch is going to do and the fact that he thinks he's working with the FBI. But Devasher's the scariest. He has the most intel. His whole job is to make sure people don't do this within the firm. It's to keep the firm going and keep it a secret and make sure no one goes to the FBI and rats them out. And he does so many intimidating tactics. The fact that he takes pictures of Mitch having an affair with a girl and almost sends them to his wife, that was super intimidating in the book, but in the movie I was like, okay, well, okay. Ed Harris is in it, and he's the FBI director. He was more intimidating. But it's opposite in the book. To me, the people in the firm are more intimidating in the book than the actual FBI. The FBI kind of feel like they don't know completely what they're doing, and they're relying that much on Mitch, which makes it more fun when Mitch is outwitting them and the mafia. It was weird seeing the FBI be more intimidating, which is probably how they should be in all honesty in the book, but not seeing the mafia be as intimidating. That's the mafia. They're supposed to be scary and trap these people. You have good people like Lamar Quinn who are trapped. They got fooled into this and they can't leave. They have a family, they have a life, they gotta take care of them. And you feel for those characters. There is one aspect though that I appreciate that they added in the movie that they did not have in the book. And this ended up being part of the storyline of Mitch having an affair with a girl when he goes on a trip. I was pissed in this book because I hate when characters do that, but then you still kind of have to root for them because they're your main character, so they're forgiven. But I was really annoyed, and I was waiting the whole book for his wife to find out. And you think for a split second that she does, because she does have an envelope delivered to her, but it doesn't have anything inside it. And that's Devasher using a scare tactic against Mitch. And she ends up never finding out about it. And for me, this was such a big plot point, and it for not to be fully utilized was kind of annoying for me. Like, it was used for Devasher as a scare tactic, but then it was just left alone. And for me, it should be a bigger issue. He clues in his wife about the danger that they are in. You know how much more of an element that would have played of knowing that they're in danger, but then you find out your husband cheated on you. Then you still have to work with him in order to be okay and not get killed by the company he's working for. And you don't get that in the book. She's still a fantastic character in the book, but I just did not like that element was not fully developed, in my opinion. In the movie, they actually did go through with that, where he ends up telling her he had an affair with someone. And I think it was in the movie because he saw the pictures, he wanted to get to her before she saw the pictures. But I still really appreciated that they did add that. And while everything didn't completely line up in the movie like I wanted it to, that element did. And then you feel her frustration and her going back and forth between her husband's been unfaithful, but she has to work with him, or else she's gonna die as well. One plot point that they didn't put in the movie that was in the book, which I thought was important as well, was the fact that his wife is from a rich family. That is a big aspect because that's part of their relationship's dynamic, is that tension. Her family doesn't approve of Mitch because he's not rich, he's from a poor family, his family has scandal in it, and she's from this really upper class society. It becomes a point of conflict when Mitch ends up being able to give her everything she had before. For her, he's going to work more and he's not staying at home, but she has everything that she had before, but that's not what she's with him for. I think one thing I liked in the movie more was actually Gene Hackman's character, Avery. I really liked how Gene Hackman played him, because Avery isn't an awful guy, but he's more relatable in the movie than he is in the book. I like that he helped them at the end. In the movie, they make it to where Abby is the one who fools Avery when they're away. In the book, it's Tammy, but I do like that Avery realizes what they're doing, and he doesn't try and stop her. I think that was a really good choice. I really liked that in the movie. I didn't like that they had Mitch's wife, Abby, actually do the one who's manipulating it. I get why, because she's a bigger character in the movie, you gotta make her bigger, but Abby has her own manipulation tactics in the book that still makes her a super strong character, and it's not as intense as Tammy's, but it's still interesting. She ends up having to play a big mental game that is kind of overlooked in the movie. They gave her Tammy's part, basically. They combined the two in the movie, but I didn't like it. I get why they were giving her a bigger part, but she has a different mental game in the book, and I wish they would have stuck with that. The other big difference is the ending. The ending is way different, and weirdly, this is one of the situations where I did not mind completely either ending. I think I like the book one a little bit more because it's so much more intense and so much more dragged out, and it definitely plays with that element of your characters don't necessarily get that full happy ending. In the movie, you don't get a full happy ending either, but I still liked how they ended it, how he still manipulated a lot, which I thought was really, really cool. In the book and in the movie, he still breaks out his brother, but in the book, he ends up outsmarting the FBI and the firm, but it's this really intense search for the last half of the book, and finally Mitch and his wife and everyone is able to get out, and they have to go live on an island basically forever or sail around the world and never assume their original identity, but that intensity throughout was really, really cool. And like I said, it doesn't have that perfect happy ending because they don't get to ride off into the sunset. They have to restart their lives. They're together, but they gotta restart everything. They can't use their same names, they can't ever be caught, they can't live the life that they had before, and that's really sad. In the movie, what happens is Mitch still outsmarts them, but he ends up going to the heads of the mafia, saying that he will be their lawyer for them, and manipulates them into making them his lawyer so that way they won't go after him anymore. But then he still gets back at the firm for treating him so horribly. And even though it wasn't as strong as an ending to me, I still loved it. So I thought that was really cool that they decided decided to go with that choice, and it worked. And it really showcased his lawyer abilities, which I think the ending in the book doesn't really do, but you see it throughout the book more than you do in the movie. Also, I do wish Tammy's character was big in the movie just because I loved Tammy's character. She was awesome. She did a lot of the hard work. In the movie, she's still there, but she doesn't do as much. Like I said, they combined her character with Abby, so Abby did most of what Tammy was doing throughout, and I just wish they could have shown more, a little bit of what Tammy exactly does, because Tammy's put in danger too. That's the thing, there weren't enough stakes in the movie for me. I didn't feel like a character was in danger. And I get that there's that element of, well, you've read the books, so you know what happened, you know who survived, you know who doesn't. You can still amp up the stakes. For me, there was no one who felt in danger to me. And I've watched book to movie adaptations where even though I know what's happening, I still feel scared that maybe they're gonna change it, or maybe that character is in danger. If you make it intense enough, even a person who's read the book is maybe going to question for a few seconds whether that character is going to survive or not, even if they know that they survive or don't survive in the book. And you're dealing with the mafia. You should feel like they're going to maybe potentially get killed if they get caught right now. So where in this, it felt like an uphill battle. It was insane. I was mentally exhausted by the end of this thing. That is really all I have to say between this comparison and contrast. The movie was definitely rushed, but it's just such a tricky book to translate. It was a really fantastic book. I really did thoroughly enjoy this book. So thank you, Abuelo, for recommending me to pick up a John Grisham book. Thank you so much all for watching this. Go watch the movie, go read the book, do your own compare and contrast, and let me know what you think of it. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any other books, movies, TVs, any recommendations at all, leave them in the comments below. I always write them. If you want updates on what's going on in the acting world of my life, or just updates on whether I'm going to be uploading new videos anytime soon, you can go to my blog. Here's the link flashing across here. It's where I'm going to update you a lot when I can't get a video up. Thank you so much for joining me. Have an awesome day, evening, afternoon, whatever time of the day you're watching this in. Don't forget to be awesome. And don't sign up for a firm in Memphis because apparently they're the mafia. Goodbye!